Dunkirk. And let's start with Jack Loudon. Come on in, Jack, and let's applause. I saw Jack at breakfast today. Did you have a good breakfast with your mate today? I was sitting I pretended like I was sitting with you. And here we have Barry Keoghan. Is that right? Come on, Barry. And next up, of course, we have Mark Rylance. So very good to see you. And let's bring in now Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan. And coming up, of course, we have Finn Whitehead. Finn, good to see you again. And Harry Styles. It's going to go. Come this way, please. Here we go, Harry. Good to see you. And of course, we also have Emma Thomas, and that rounds out the cast and filmmakers for Dunkirk. And to start things off, let's start off with Christopher Nolan. I feel like in many ways, Mr. Nolan, you're like a new filmmaker making your first real live story on the big screen. What attracted you to Dunkirk?
Well, like most British people, Dunkirk's a story that I've grown up with. I don't even remember the first time I was told about the events at Dunkirk. And so, as kids, we received the sort of very simplified, almost mythic fairy tale version of what happened there. But over time, and in particular experience that Emma and I had about 20 years ago, where we made the crossing with a friend of ours who owned a small boat, and we made the crossing at about the same time of the year the evacuation had taken place, and went to Dunkirk. And the crossing was extremely difficult. The channel was very rough. It felt difficult and dangerous, and that was without people dropping bombs on us. That was without heading into a war zone. So I came away from that experience with my respect and fascination for the people who'd taken part in the real evacuation absolutely cemented. So it's just something that I've never quite understood why a modern film hasn't been made about it. And as a filmmaker, those are the kind of gaps that you're looking to fill.
Okay, let's kick it off with the press. We'll start right over here.
Is it on? Wow, the movie was amazing in IMAX. It was so awesome. My question is for Christopher Nolan. We've seen your career grow. You, independent filmmaker, kicking butt back then. Now, this epic war film you've created. Can you talk a little bit about the process moving forward in your career, how you choose your projects, how you guys as a team choose your projects, what you direct?
I mean, for me, it's always been about story. It's always been about finding a story that hooks me, that I feel that I can have an emotional connection with, that'll sustain me through the years of making the film. I'm very single-minded. I only really do one thing at a time. I'm not very good at planning what I'm going to do next. So I dive in and I concentrate on one film for 2 or 3 years usually. And so it has to be a story that I feel is going to hook me emotionally for that period of time and keep me enthusiastic about it.
Emma, where do you fall into place with all this?
I guess I produce the films that he gets enthusiastic about. I mean, we only really work together, and so, I try and suggest things to him. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But, it really has to be a film that Chris is excited about and sees something that he can do that's different and he can get behind.
Right over here.
I'm very curious about about your editing process. How long was your first cut on this compared to the finished film? And also, you haven't really released deleted scenes from your previous films. Have you pulled like a Kubrick where everything has been burned? Or do you have them in a vault somewhere where one day they might see the light of day?
I know, they're all in the films. I have a great editor, Lee Smith, and we find a way to just stuff more and more into the sausage. So we don't really tend to leave anything on the cutting room floor in terms of complete scenes that would be coherent on a deleted scenes feature. If you look back at my past, like Insomnia, we have 2 deleted scenes on the DVD there because we had 2 scenes that I liked very much that had to come out of the film for time. And after that, I really took the view of trying to make those decisions on the page. So being a writer-director, I don't come to the floor with things that, well, let me put it this way. Making films is hard. All of these people here can attest to that. It's just difficult, and you'll do anything to not shoot something if you don't have to. So I try and pull things out at script stage that I don't think are going to serve the narrative.
Right here.
I thought it was an interesting choice to have the three different stories going on, one by land, one by air, and one by sea. And I was wondering what inspired that choice and what you were hoping to gain from those perspectives.
What I was hoping to gain was a way of maintaining a subjective storytelling approach, but still building up a coherent picture of the larger events of Dunkirk. So everything in the film is intended to be intense, suspenseful, and subjective. You want to be on the beach with these guys, seeing events through their points of view. But then you also want to build up this bigger picture, and so that requires the view from the air, from a Spitfire pilot, on the sea, from people coming over to help with the evacuation. And that way, not let the audience step out of the movie, step out of the human scale perspective. I didn't want to cut to generals in rooms with maps kind of pushing things around or whatever. I didn't want to give the audience knowledge that the characters didn't have other than through the interaction of these three distinct story threads.
I want all the actors to answer this question. Given the fact that there wasn't a lot of dialogue in this movie, what does a Christopher Nolan script even look like? Harry Styles, let's start with you.
I think the thing with Chris's script is very is the same across a lot of his older movies, is that they lend themselves to multiple viewings, and I feel like you learn new things each time you watch it, and I feel like it's very much the same. I felt when reading the script is you kind of learnt new things and found new things that you were excited about within it. I think that's kind of, once you get your head around it, because they're obviously so technical, you kind of enjoy it more and more the more times you read it, which is obviously amazing.
Ben?
I think that the fact that there wasn't much dialogue in the script meant that a lot of the characterization was left to us, which is quite an amazing thing to have. And it just meant that we got to work on it ourselves, I guess. And when we stepped onto set, you had to kind of know your character so that you can respond to the situations around you accordingly. So,
Mark?
It's always helpful not to have to try and convince an audience that a bit of exposition is something that you really need to say as a character. Even in Shakespeare plays, you get exposition sometimes, and you have to work hard and twist and turn to make it sound like it's something you need to say to someone else to change them or to change yourself. And there was none of that in the script. Everything had it was easy to see the need behind the words and behind the situation, so that's a delight. It's also a delight, as I imagine it was, to work with Kurosawa, to have the same person who's made the script directing the film, if they can do both things, which Chris can, because it gives him a flexibility when you're filming a scene. He knows the material well enough that if an idea comes up when you're filming something, he'll know whether it's a valuable idea or not. And always things happen in front of the camera that are not prepared for. So you want to have someone in charge who's strong and knows what they want to do, but's flexible about what's happening in the present moment.
Jack?
It's a very lean script. It's very fit. There's not a lot of fat in the script, and I think that's what makes it a great script. And me personally, I enjoyed the majority of my dialogue was technical jargon. I really there's a great satisfaction when you have to learn technical jargon for a part, and in the military they love shorthand, and it's just a personal satisfaction in knowing what certain things meant, and it was fun.
Do you remember any of it?
Vector 1-2, I certainly remember that.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's great. Right over here.
Mr. Nolan always brings out the best in actors. What's the best note for all the actors? What's the best note you got from Mr. Nolan?
What was the best note you got from him?
I think Chris kind of creates this world around you where you don't have to act too much, and a lot of it is reacting. I think as much as anyone could possibly help you be in a situation, he creates that for you. So I think it's just not overthinking it and don't think about, acting too much, I think is kind of the best thing. Chris really kind of puts you at ease in terms of, just say what you need to say, kind of don't overthink it. And I think if you're trying to act, you obviously don't want to be kind of overthinking anything. So yeah, I think Chris just creates an environment on set where you feel very, you're not intimidated so much by the scale of everything that's going on behind you. He makes it feel very intimate with you and the camera, and it helps to like not distract you. So I'd say, yeah, that kind of really, and he's nice.